Do you end up generalizing in a lot of situations for people, events, experiences? You don't really like to do it, but you'd like to avoid a situation like this. If you'd like to learn how to, that's exactly what I'm going to be sharing here in this very video. This is Dr. DrGopikaKumar, your communication and mindset coach. Let's get and find out that how do we deal with generalizations. Now, where is the concept of generalization really coming from, when we're talking about emotional well-being altogether? So in this very segment and this entire series of videos that we have created, we've been talking about that we want to create emotional stability, for happiness and for a higher self-esteem, for a higher self-worth. But imagine, just because of performing a small little tiny task once, that maybe you used to always reach on time to your workplace, and it's only happened once or twice that you were not able to reach on time, and your team leaders and your bosses have started to generalize to the extent that they're completely stretching it, where they're saying that you've never been on time, you've always taken things really for granted, and you've never really paid attention to how important it is to be there on time. And they start to generalize the entire information. How do you feel at that point? You feel frustrated, right? You feel completely hurt because you've just realized that this isn't how I was. I mean, it's just happened only once or twice, and what right do you have to generalize a situation like that? Now, if you want to avoid a situation for yourself, doing it for somebody else, here is something that I'm going to be describing here at length and in detail, which is how do we avoid these generalizations. First, to understand, to avoid these, let's look at this in various situations happening all around us, personally, professionally, all around us. And there could be a lot of interesting situations also, by the way. So, let's pick up the very first situation, let's say between a mother and a child. A child hasn't really eaten the tiffin and, has come back, the entire tiffin meal has come back home, and the mother is very panicky and frustrated and feeling very angry, and what do you think that she immediately generalizes? I know that you already have the answer, right? She immediately generalizes and she says that, I mean, that's how you do it. I mean, you never complete your tiffin. It's exactly how it's always coming back home. That's not something that you should really be doing. This is not the kind of behavior. And what happens in return? The behavior of a child is that they are frustrated and they're saying that that's not what happens every single time. Why are you unnecessarily generalizing? And the entire emotional stability gets flickered between a mother and a child. But having said that, it can also happen vice versa. Now imagine that a child looks at a mother and says many a single times that please remember that you need to come across and be present along with me at an open house where you need to meet up all the teachers, make sure that you gather all the feedback, because they're going to share the feedback. Now here is something that the parent might forget or the mother might forget, and the mother forgets to completely attend the open house altogether. In fact, that's something that's happened with me personally as well. Having said that, now what happens? Suddenly there is a complete outburst of emotions, of generalizations, and the generalization is that how can you forget? It's not important to you. So this entire information is distorted, and you're being generalized for never having to remember an open house and not taking the responsibility much enough, and you're putting into a situation where there is an emotional outburst and you do not know how to handle it, right? And you feel extremely hurt and you feel bad that how can somebody generalize and it's only happened once, right? If you're already starting to relate with these, let me quote you a few more situations so that we're all completely in synchrony and in alignment with what do we mean by generalizations, and how it can really create that that unhappiness and that emotional instability in our relationships. Now imagine between a husband and a wife, and it could be a simple situation like that you were asked to keep up some amount of salad as per when you are putting across the meal for your husband, and they're going to be going across to their work, and you've forgotten to do that. And just because you're not keeping up all the necessary greens or what they have required you to do, or putting across the necessary fruits, because you haven't been able to do it. In return, the spouse could be generalizing, saying that, whenever I ask you to do something, why is it that we are forgetting? Why can't we be more, present at the moment, and why can't we be more cautious about things like these? So what happens to the wife? Suddenly, they feel that, why am I being generalized? Why am I being put into a situation that I've never taken care of it at all? They feel hurt, and they're completely, in a situation of where, there's a lot of pain, and they're going through that, that emotional, the ups and downs that is really going through within them, and only they know about it. And the same can happen for them between, vice versa, exactly like it happened for the wife. And the husband could forget probably the wedding anniversary or an important occasion to celebrate, and he comes back and he absolutely has no memory of it. And what happens? The wife is immediately going to generalize and say that, you never remember occasions and anniversaries and important events like these. Why is it that you're never able to take out the necessary time that you need to spend with your family? And that's the time for the frustration, where the husband starts feeling that this isn't true. I mean, I've of course been able to pay attention to it. Then why are we generalizing a situation? So there could be many such situations like these happening in your environment as well. And if you've already been able to pinpoint that out for yourself, here is how I'd like you to treat this for yourself as well. So if you would like to avoid doing it for somebody else, here is how I always want to put this across. Put things into perspective. Before you can actually start pointing out that something needs to be generalized, you need to put things into perspective, which means put the entire bigger picture into the frame. When was the last time a similar situation happened? How many occurrences of the same event has happened before you're actually able to create a complete generalization of it? It was the very first one, which is to put things into perspective and see and look at it from various different dimensions, that how many occurrences or repetitions of the same event has happened. And having said that, not to do it technically, literally on an Excel sheet as I mentioned, but to really take that heart of empathy to really find out the details before we can, generalize it any further. The second most, lucrative way of being able to avoid any generalization is to apply your critical thinking skills. Now, when I say critical thinking, which means you're using your ability to understand and analyze. You being able to see through a situation on why it happened, If somebody is late, if somebody is reacting in a certain behavior in a certain manner, why are they doing so? What goes behind the picture is where you're putting things into a critical thinking skill, which means you're understanding and you're analyzing before you actually arrive at creating your own generalizations, right? The third and a very interesting way that I would like to avoid generalizations is where you acknowledge the difference that exists between yourself and of course the party that you're differing your opinion with. It could be between a wife and a husband, it could be between a child and a mother, it could be between a boss and a team member, but acknowledge the differences. In fact, you can also seek diverse perspectives from people around you if required be in a situation like these, so that you're able to put things into perspective and see that was the generalization even required or not. So first of all, we talked about put things into perspective, look at it that how many occurrences has actually happened before you arrive at a generalization like this. Use your critical thinking skills so that you're really able to see and analyze that how fair is it for you to be able to generalize, and then acknowledge those individual differences. Always carry that heart of empathy, because nobody intentionally wants to send out the wrong signals, but if they're doing so, we need to take that heart of empathy to understand where are they really coming from, so that we're at least able to avoid many such situations of miscommunication, which can really create an entire upheaval of our emotions, or for somebody else, which may completely deter their emotional stability altogether. And we do not want that to happen for anybody else, right? So take care of these, small little aspects where we end up generalizing things based on the kind of conclusions that we're arriving at suddenly, which can really create that entire outburst of emotions thereby. Do share on how you're going to be using the concept of avoiding generalizations to create your pattern of emotional stability as well. Do remember to like this video if you have actually been able to enjoy this entire series of videos as well. Please subscribe to our channel. We continuously keep sharing many such videos, and we're going to continue to keep coming with many such videos in future as well. But for the moment, this is Dr. Gopika Kumar signing off.